Hi, today we're going to look into the role of electron transport chains that are embedded in the inner membrane of the mitochondria and the thylakoid membrane of the chloroplast. But before we go into any specifics about its specific role in each of those different organelles, we're going to look into the definition of what an electron transport chain really is. Simply put, an electron transport chain can be characterized as a series of protein complexes that are embedded in the membranes the inner membrane of the mitochondria. If it were to be an eukaryotic organism, if it were to be a plant, it would be in the thylakoid membrane of the chloroplast. And what it essentially does is it essentially just pumps the H plus ions in order to create an H plus ion concentration gradient. And what the system does with the H plus ion concentration gradient is, as the H plus ion moves down the concentration gradient, it does so through the ATP synthase. And when it moves down the concentration gradient through the ATP synthase, this process is characterized as chemiosmosis. And as this process happens, this releases large amounts of energy, which is then stored in the form of an ATP molecule, which we have spoken before. These are essentially just energy storage molecules. So I guess the ultimate goal of an electron transport chain is to facilitate the sort of H plus ion concentration gradient by pumping the hydrogen ions, and this essentially would create a concentration gradient. And as the H plus ions kind of move through the concentration gradient, down the concentration gradient through the ATP synthase, we would get lots of energy, which would then be stored in the form of ATP molecules. And this electron transport chain exists in, as we've spoken before, in the inner membrane of the mitochondria and in the thylakoid membrane of the chloroplast. And alright, that is it for what we need to know about electron transport chains today. Next time, we're going to talk about the role of electron transport chains in the thylakoid membrane of the chloroplast specifically.